afternoon from Castle Goring, from Mickey, from Aurora, and from me. Hopefully Aurora is not going to create too much havoc and we can actually get on with the matter at hand, which might prove to be rather difficult. So I am going to give her something to chew upon, and hopefully that will make a difference. Before I start, I should say, I have been sent an excellent book called And Then the King Died. It's perfect for children, for young people, and for those who are interested in history and don't know very much about history. It is the death of each of the kings of England, then England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, from Alfred the Great up to George VI. One page or a page and a half for each king. Very well done, very entertaining. I would highly recommend it as a gift for children especially, and young people. Now, the first question is from B. Bloom. Dear Lady C, I would very much like to hear about the transfer of power. Although it was hinted here and there that Prince Charles was getting more and more influence, you no doubt know a lot more details. Please enlighten us. Also, did you know the late John Aspinall, friend of Lord Lucan? Greetings from the Netherlands. I only met John Aspinall. I wouldn't have said I knew him, but I knew people who knew him very well. Mark Sykes was a very great friend of his, and in fact they were colleagues in gaming clubs together in the 60s. He also was the boyfriend of my late cousin Tony. She was Tony Acevedo, then she ended up being Tony Trivies. And when she was at St. Mary Ascot, he was her boyfriend. But to say I knew him, I didn't really know him, but I knew an awful lot about him. He was absolutely brilliant at marketing. Thanks to him, the Claremont Club became the club that it became, and they housed Annabelle's in the basement of the Claremont Club. So he made a contribution not only to the gaming life of Britain, but to the nightlife of London. Now, insofar as the redistribution of really what you could actually call the duties and the symbols of monarchy, because the Queen, it's not exactly power sharing, although to an extent it is. She started to share power without relegating any of her control. Prince Charles for some time now has been receiving pretty much all the paperwork that she receives. The idea has been to have a soft regency without actually having a regency. If it doesn't become necessary, which would only be on the occasion of the Queen being completely incapacitated. This is a soft regency, which is a transfer of status, power sharing as opposed to surrender of power, the sharing of duties, the symbols of monarchy. The Queen has retained absolute control, however, but she has surrendered a lot of the day-to-day stuff to Charles, and some to William, some to Edward. And she has paved the way so that when she dies, it won't be a huge jolt because, for instance, the opening of Parliament, you know, the state opening of Parliament, which was done by Charles and William and Camilla, that was one of the very symbolic things. She is also not taking the salute at Trooping the Colour. It's going to be taken by Prince Charles, Princess Anne, and Prince William. So she is effectively handing over and supplanting herself with them in terms of continuity, that the monarchy continues irrespective of who the monarch is, which I think is important. You know, everybody wants a smooth transition. Nobody wants a power wrench. And if the Queen kept absolute control the way Queen Victoria did, there would be a huge visual wrench. This way, there's not going to be a huge visual wrench. And the monarchy's power is soft power as opposed to hard power now. But she has handed as much as she can over while keeping absolute control in terms of decision making. Make no mistake about it. She is still in the driver's seat. I hope that answers the question. And I hope that baby girl's chewing on that bone isn't going to cause a problem. If it does, I'm going to have to take her next door. Ms. B says, it was reported on Yahoo News and the Daily Beast that the HRH title has been restored to Prince Andrew. He will be attending the Royal Garter with the Queen and the senior royals. What do I think of it? I think good on the Queen. I think she's right to be supportive. I think the mistake, as one of the private secretaries said to me here some time ago, he said, you know, the mistake that the monarchy has made with Prince Andrew is in not backing him up 110% from the word go. They knew he was innocent, as indeed the FBI and the CIA. They all have chapter and verse on not only what Prince Andrew did every day, going all the way back, but on what Bill Clinton did every day, going all the way back, and what was done in the presence of Bill Clinton. It has been a massive setup, as I have tried to point out before. Prince Andrew's interests don't lie in the direction of unsophisticated 17-year-old tarts. Sorry. Everybody knows it. Everybody in the secret services on both sides of the Atlantic have known it all along. Everybody knew it was inevitable that the case would have to fold because the photograph did not exist as an original, and it was the only bit of evidence, in quotes, that she had linking her to Prince Andrew, anodyne as it was. And I have gone into the whys and wherefores of how this whole situation came up, and I'm not going to do it again. What I will say is very categoric. There is no way that Prince Andrew was guilty of anything untoward with Virginia Giuffre, who is, by her own acknowledgement, a former prostitute, a former procuress of underage girls for Jeffrey Epstein. And I don't want to go into the victimology of it all. There were genuine victims. She simply wasn't one of them. That is my understanding and my view. There is ample evidence to show that the whole thing was a stitch up from start to finish. And the Queen is quite right to be supportive of her son. The pity is that she was talked into not being as supportive of him as in the private secretary's opinion, and it has to be said, at the time I argued with him and said, well, they're protecting the monarchy. So he said, no, they're making a huge mistake. He said they should come out fighting, saying they know he's innocent, they believe he's innocent, it's absolute nonsense, and they stand by him 100%. They should not be saying things like, we are going to withdraw and allow him to withdraw from public duties, blah, 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 blah. And I can see now that that private secretary was absolutely right. And I'm delighted that the Queen has come out punching. And I'm delighted that Prince Andrew is going to be there. The man is guilty of nothing except being a dolt at times, charmless at times, arrogant at times. But since when were those crimes? He may be an unappealing personality, but it doesn't alter the fact the man is innocent. And I think it is scandalous that supposedly decent people in this country and in the United States, where the concept is everybody is innocent until they are proven guilty, could have decided that he's guilty because he's royal and she was trash, 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 trash. Because she was trash. And incidentally, she was a trust fund babe piece of trash as well. Wendy Curtis says, Dear Lady C, I was wondering what your thoughts were regarding Tom Cruise taking Kate's hand at the Top Gun premiere. They say the public was divided by it. I would venture to say that Americans by and large thought it was gentlemanly of Cruise to help her up the stairs, and the English that it was presumptuous of him. If my assessment is right, I tend to agree with the English, even though I live in Missouri. I'm sure that Cruise would have known the rule of not touching a royal, so why he thinks it's okay for him to do it, not anyone else, is totally wrong in my book. I don't get why Hollywood elites think that they can break rules when no one else can. I mean, just because someone looks good on camera can memorize a few lines, show nice facial expressions, etc. Does that entitle them to do things that are unacceptable for other people? I think Kate was taken aback and didn't like it. I know that if I were in her shoes, I would have cringed. Sorry, but that's a fact. Anyway, I was wondering what you thought about it. I love your show. Wendy Curtis, greetings. I have to tell you, I love Missouri. One of my sisters lives part of the time in Missouri. And so do a niece and a nephew of mine, just for what it's worth. Love Missouri. I love the Midwest and the people in it. I think Tom Cruise was trying to be gracious and gentlemanly. I think that Catherine did the ladylike and gracious thing by accepting his hand. I don't think it was a huge imposition. It was an offer so much as an invasion. an offer that it would have been ungracious of her to accept, so she accepted it. You could say he shouldn't have made the offer. And a lot of men don't seem to understand that women in evening dresses are better off not being helped upstairs, because we can negotiate perfectly capably on our own. Stepping in and out of a car is a slightly different matter. But I don't think we want to make too much of a big deal about it. I think he was trying to be gracious. She accepted it in the spirit in which it was intended. And more important, his presence shows to what extent Harry and Meghan are being marginalized and sidelined by Hollywood. Hollywood likes a winner. Everybody has always known the one thing Hollywood doesn't like is a loser. Harry and Meghan are not only losers, they're toxic losers. They have played everything wrong. They have de-glamorized themselves. Oh, Mickey, come and help Marty. I'm crying for Meg's baby because she's such a victim. She's been a victim of. She was a huge star in Hollywood until she gave up that wonderful career that she had to become a member of the royal family. Nobody agreed with her. Nobody in the royal family recognized how wonderful she was and what a great star she was, and they didn't use her the way they ought to, because remember, she said, use me as you will. Like she was some sort of paid personage who was going to be utilized by the client. What a way to present yourself to your in-laws. But Catherine and William are going to America. Watch this space, because you're going to see all the A-listers flood to them, and they are going to continue to flood away from Meg's the baby and has been, otherwise known as has been and never was. I think that pretty much says it. Joy Pepper says, hello, Lady C. It is always a joy to hear you present your opinion on both the royals and the ex-royals. May I say, Joy Pepper, they are actually called ex-royals, but they're not ex-royals. They are formerly working royals. I just say that for what it's worth. I would love to hear about the plans regarding the shifting power in the royal family. Well, you've heard. Speaking of power, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge were fabulous on the red carpet at the top premiere, weren't they? They certainly were. They are an exquisitely stunning and very gracious reflection of the monarchy, aren't they just? They are exactly what heirs to a throne should be. And indeed, in Sweden, for instance, you have Prince Carl Philip and his wife, who are equally good-looking, equally glamorous. Then you have the Crown Prince of Denmark and the Crown Princess again. It's the standard, it's the bar that people not only aspire to, but achieve if they're not arrogant, if they understand that 1,000 years of tradition should not be overturned by arrogance, impertinence, and ignorance. Had Meghan been prepared to look, listen, and learn, She could have joined the club and been equally sparkling and equally desirable and equally desired. In fact, she'd have been more desired than all of them because she had the advantage of being cafe au lait, very, very lay, with just a touch of cafe, but it would have worked. It would have worked had she played by the rules. Regarding the latter, so she is saying that they are an exquisitely stunning and very gracious reflection of the monarchy. Regarding the latter, I remember Mr. Farcical Harkle complained that he felt that he was living the Truman Show for most of his life. He intimated this was the reason for the challenges he has faced regarding mental health. Maybe regarding mental health, but not regarding stupidity. That was innate. Wouldn't being the subject of a reality show cause him even more harm? Jumping from the pot into the frying pan would certainly result in burnout, wouldn't it? My dear, what do you call Mr. Farcical Harkle and his embarrassment of a spouse? They are so arrogant, they are so impertinent, and I will repeat again, they are so ignorant that they think that their way is the best way. They don't want privacy. They don't want to be reserved. They don't want a private life free of the shackles of royalty. They want a public life free of the shackles of royalty. They want money for their efforts. They want to be viewed as public servants while they are being paid for what they call public service, but I call monetization. Nothing that Harry and Meghan have said is consistent. One thing contradicts the other. When people don't add up, there's a good reason why they don't add up. I think it's called falsity. Jenna G says, I really am not a fan of the Harkles. However, I can't help but wonder why the royal family does not support them financially instead of allowing this reality show to happen. It brings the whole family down if they do this, in my opinion. Well, Jenna G, I get your point, and I think there are many people who would agree with you. But Harry and Meghan are not only greedy for money, they're greedy for attention. The only way they can get the attention they want, because remember, they have declared that the rest of the royal family is jealous of them because they were huge superstars, eclipsing everybody else. And for a short while, they did get a lot of attention. But that is swings and roundabouts. That would have happened inevitably. That happens in every ensemble play, so to speak. Meghan ought to know all about that because she was an ensemble player on Suits. It wasn't enough for them. If they were supported by the royal family. First of all, it would have to come out of private income, and the royal family is not as rich as people would think. Prince Charles and the Queen have good incomes, but they are basically state-based. They have to be accountable. They cannot squander their money, their income. They can't be subsidizing flotsam and jetsam, Iscariots, Judases, Hardcashians. And even if they did, Meghan and Harry would still find a way of grabbing the headlines, becoming the center of attention at all times, because it's not only about money, it's about attention. I hope that clears it up. Esmeralda Catherine says, yes, please. Just today, Sunday, there was a story that Toya Holness, Global Press Secretary, I think for Archewell, quit, bringing the total number of their staff who have quit in 4 years to 18. Does the bullying continue? Oh, Esmeralda Catherine, you ask awkward questions. Yes, Toya Holness has departed, the latest in a long line of people to depart. I mean, the arrogance also, a global press secretary. I mean, talk about puffing yourself up. I mean, Meghan obviously thinks she's one of the chickens in her pen, and somebody took a bicycle pump, made her sit on it, and he's going to inflate her until she explodes. Because that degree of hot air has got to be explosive. Global press secretary. You have to laugh. Leaders of countries have national. They have global because they're bigger and better than everyone else. Yes, Toya Holness has departed. Does the bullying continue? Well, I will quote Meghan. My job isn't to mollycoddle staff. She expects them to deliver, and notwithstanding the claptrap that Harry comes up with in Better Up, you don't like your job? Leave it. Every 20 minutes there should be 30 minutes of me time. Notwithstanding all of that claptrap, my understanding is that Meghan is a very hard task mistress. And as Jason Knopf said, her technique is to always have somebody in her sights who she goes after, targets, denigrates, belittles, pushes. It goes with a certain personality type. I used to see my mother do it all the time with people. Very unattractive. But you can't expect the chicken with, and certainly not a woman with chicken feet, to soar like an eagle. Helen Curran says, the photos at the polo match are bizarre. Why is there no one else there apart from a handful of randoms wearing trainers? Oh dear, oh dear. Yes, Megsy baby, getting it wrong yet again. Breaking all the rules. First of all, One does not wear stilettos to polo. It is just not done. One wears wedges, espadrilles, or very clunky big heels, and not too high either. And as for wearing black and white, did she think she was Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady? Yes, she did. And that rather ghastly hat? Oh dear, oh dear. The sort of thing that one would buy in a very cheap shop for $3.99 and cover one's face because one had forgotten one's sun hat. Tacky, tacky, tacky. But these photographs serve a purpose. They keep them at the forefront. That's one thing they do. And another thing they do is they are providing them with regal footage for the true tales of the Hardcashians of Montecito. Has been and never was. Classy to the nth degree. I actually think that it's a promising sign that Harry has taken up polo again. It means that he and she have twigged that regality is a bigger seller and more in demand than victimhood, than poor me, than I'm pathetic. Oh, I'm pathetic. Everybody has to feel sorry for me. Yes, they do. They do. I only went to private school, worked from the age of 6 months before I was even weaned off the bottle. I was working on a hard grafter. It's all carefully orchestrated to create an effect. And my goodness, they are succeeding in creating the effect. They are. Unfortunately, the shots need to be narrowly cropped. Otherwise, you will hear that the empty vessels are making a lot of noise. Helen Walker says, now that we are finding the huge number of bots on Twitter, we know they don't have many true fans. Well, isn't that an interesting revelation to have emerged? But evidently Meghan bought a lot of her supporters or followers or whatever you call them when she had the TIG. So she knows her way around fabrication. She knows her way around acting as if. She knows her way around pretending to be one thing when in reality you're another, in the hope that if the donkey looks in the looking glass long enough and says, I'm a fine racehorse, I'm a thoroughbred, I'm a fine racehorse, I'm a thoroughbred, it's never going to go meh and give the game away. Disba B says, maybe Markle will find a Middle Eastern billionaire. We can but hope. Well, there are many of those. And I also gather they have attributes that she finds desirable, indeed necessary. I will go no further than that. I'm sure there are a few around who would take her on just for notoriety's sake. I would hate to be disputatious. Come on, all you potentates who are watching Lady C surreptitiously. Go and try your luck and take her off our hands. She's easy meat. Well, I don't know about being easy meat because I think she's tougher than old boots. And as my therapist Basil used to say, sharks like sweet meat. I'm not so sure she's sweet meat. However, maybe somebody will want her as wife number 4, you know, a temporary trophy. Then she could get a good divorce settlement. Of course, she's not going to be able to keep the yacht, but I don't think she'll know that until the axe falls. But let us see, because maybe she'll stay with her age, because maybe no Middle Eastern potentate will want her. It's quite possible they won't. They don't like trouble to that extent. They don't. They like their women to be sensible, civilized, well trained, if not submissive. Not pains. Mellow Yellow says, Lady C, do you think Meghan Markle is a gold digger? Do I think Meghan Markle is a gold digger? Yes. I think her actions show that she is greedy for money, but she doesn't limit her greed to filthy lucre. She is greedy for attention. She is greedy for recognition. She is greedy for approbation. I think she's just one of those people who is a study in greed. I think she's needy, she's greedy, and she's really unattractive. It's interesting because both she and Amber Heard are actually not bad-looking women in repose. I mean, Meghan Markle is not a great beauty, but Amber Heard is, or was, genuinely beautiful. But as soon as they open up their mouths, their spirit takes over, and my goodness, repulsion is too weak a word to describe how one ends up feeling about them, if one is anyone to go by. Joanna Ennis says, I can't believe, knowing what I now know about Harry and Meghan, that I hosted an event at my home to celebrate their wedding with the women of my church. We watched the wedding on TV, played royal quizzes, ate cupcakes, and were so joyful. Lady C, that is what made the betrayal on Oprah so painful to me. Harry and Meghan referred to their wedding as a spectacle. And there, Joanna Ennis has summarized in a few words what is so appalling about Meghan Markle and Harry and the games they play. They didn't slap everybody in the face. They spat in everybody's faces. She referred to her wedding as a spectacle, and he backed her up. Judas Iscariot, in any guise, is still a traitor. They betrayed the regard, the good wishes, and the love that was being shown to them by the British people. I think this is one of the reasons why the British royal family needs to very much take on board the fact that this is not only a family problem, this is a national problem. I can say that Prince Andrew should be in the royal fold because he's innocent. You can say you don't believe he's innocent, but you can't say he's guilty. All of us can say Meghan and Harry are guilty of having abused the British people. Nobody can say that Prince Andrew abused the British people. The two situations are not analogous. And while I back support for Prince Andrew by the Queen 100%, I think any support given to Harry and Meghan, except in a purely private capacity, is misplaced, misguided, and will result in the diminution of affection for the royal family. Endless Possibilities says, Lady C, did you hear? Meghan and Harry are hosting a garden party for charities. Laugh out loud, considering how badly behaved she was at her first garden party at Buckingham Palace. Do you think they will pull it off? What are your thoughts? Oh. I hope this is another one of the kites that they fly with regularity just to get attention. Because if it's not, and if it turns out to be something that they actually do, I think it will be a blasted impertinence and an abuse and discourteous to the nth degree. You do not have competing events when you are a guest at a party. The Jubilee is a national party for the Queen and the celebration of her 70 years on the throne. It will be a solecism of the highest order if Meghan and Harry should host a garden party for charities. I think it will be delusional, pretentious, and abusive. Abusive. World Gone Mad says, hello, Lady C. Yes, I would love to hear about the power shift in the royal family. We have covered that. Meghan and Harry's docuseries will be a car crash TV. Gruesome, but you can't look away. The viewing public will look at it because they will be waiting for horrid and methane to make absolute asses of themselves. And they will. What do you think of their plans to go out and about during the Jubilee to attract attention? I think anything they do to attract attention to themselves, anything, is going to be misplaced and untoward and will result in criticism. Yes, it will result in attention, but it will be yet more negative attention. They are studies in toxicity already. Anything that they do, unless they appear dressed down, dumbed down, as sheepish as possible, anything else is going to boomerang on them. Mouse House says, most people thought Harry finally finding his soulmate was a wonderful thing. And in many ways, I think they are that for each other. They have brought out the worst in each other and also shown the truth of Harry. He seems to be a distinctly unpleasant person. Now we see why he couldn't keep a relationship. The biggest victims in all of this are his supposed children. Well, they're not the biggest victims yet. but they might well end up being the biggest victims. But you know, sometimes when things are very bad, you get the opposite result. Those children may turn out really well because they may learn from their parents what not to be. That's a possibility. I know of many instances where children were brought up by toxic parents and they used it, and I include myself in this number, as a life lesson what not to be. They are absolute soulmates on some level. They are a folie à deux. They are two very, in my opinion, disturbing, disordered individuals who have given each other permission to indulge their every failing and present themselves as virtuous when they are anything but. And they are both naive enough, immature enough, and on some level stupid enough to think that we are buying it. Well, most of us aren't. Catherine Williams says, "Dear Lady C, as someone who grew up in Merseyside, I have to say I am disappointed by the comments re Liverpool and Thatcher. It was Scargill who rang the death knell on the mines by demanding huge pay hikes. It was Derek Hatton and the militants that crippled the port of Liverpool with strikes. Yet the constant chant is about Thatcher. Sounds like bandwagon jumping to me. I have read this out, Catherine Williams, because you are absolutely right. And evidently, the unions are trying to make the same mistake again, this time with the trains. There is talk of them calling a full-out strike when trains are already suffering. Trains in this country are already overpriced. It is more expensive often to take a train than to take a plane and to drive. They are begging for disaster. But you know, when agitators agitate, they have a political objective, and they usually simply use the people to enhance their power. It so happens that Arthur Scargill did ring the death knell on the mines because he demanded huge pay hikes in an industry that was becoming ever more unprofitable and undesirable. And Derek Hatton did cripple the port of Liverpool with strikes. Somehow, the very people who wanted money where there was none seemed to blame Mrs. Thatcher, who did make the point. She said, the problem with socialists is after they've spent everybody's money and there's no more money to spend, they then say it's everybody's fault but their own. She said words to that effect. I'm actually paraphrasing what she said, but that was the gist of it. Adriana Valenzuela says, I'm sorry, Lady C, I don't think it is ambition. King Hussein stated that he wanted Noor's son to succeed his brother, and he decided not to follow his father's wishes. Adriana Valenzuela, King Hussein changed his heir very shortly before he died. The Crown Prince of Jordan for most of King Hussein's long reign was his younger brother, Prince Hassan. He spent decades expecting to inherit the throne, and King Hussein changed the Crown Prince at the 99th hour. My understanding is, and I could be wrong, that Queen Noor wanted him to name their eldest son Hamza as the Crown Prince. But Hamza was too young, and he loved Queen Noor. They had a very good marriage. She was a very good queen. So he did the next best thing, because Abdullah was mature enough to make a viable monarch while Hamza wasn't. It would have destabilized the country and the region and possibly the world had Hamza been made Crown Prince and then acceded to the throne at the tender age of something like 21. So he obliged Queen Noor by making their son Crown Prince. King Abdullah is well in his rights to have done exactly what his father did, which is change the Crown Prince. It is in the gift of the monarch to nominate the Crown Prince, and he did it. He didn't do it immediately. He waited, I think, about 5 years before doing it, and he gave his brother Hamza an honoured role. Now, my understanding, and I'm no conspiracy theorist, is that Hamza had ambitions to become king, and that Noor, being an American, and she does function on the highest level internationally, saw that there was a gap in the American market for an alternative possible monarch, and that encouraged Hamza in his misguided ambitions. And that would destabilize not only the Jordanian state and the Jordanian monarchy, but the Middle East and possibly the whole of the world. At the moment, Jordan is not an American puppet, and if Hamza should dethrone Abdullah with his American mother and his American connections and become an American poodle, I am afraid that would not play well with the rest of the world. And let us remember what America has done to previous monarchs who it helped to support. The Shah of Iran is just one example. I think the whole situation is a lot more nuanced and a lot more dangerous and a lot more frightening than you seem to think it is. King Hussein had the absolute right to name who he wanted as crown prince, and did. His son, who is the monarch, has the absolute right to do so, and has done so. Ms. Meadow says, Lady C, as you very well know, Alia Bahauddin Tukan was not from a Palestinian family. There was no such named place when she married King Hussein. You are helping to propagate a lie. Alia was born in Cairo, Egypt in 1948. The Palestinians was an identity contrived by the Egyptian-born Yasser Arafat with clever Russian promoters in the 1970s. The land before Israel was established were all mandated to the British after the fall of the Ottoman Empire into three general areas. The Arab part of the population were made up of locals, Egyptians, Syrians, and what became Jordan. Miss Meadow, first of all, may I point out to you that you are in no position to tell me what I very well know and don't know. Secondly, if you're so knowledgeable, maybe you could actually come up with a sentence where the subject of the sentence is singular and the verb is plural. Your knowledge of grammar is as inadequate and lacking as your knowledge of fact and history, and you are impertinent to boot, and I'm not going to pretend that I don't find you impertinent. How dare you say I'm trying to propagate a lie when you are a liar of the most brazen order? I will point out to you that the state of Palestine was a British mandate. Your nonsense is despicable. And I am sick to death of people who think in the same way that the Nazis thought that they could run down the Jews and turn them into despicable beings and then spin around and say that they were subhuman. You're doing the same thing with the Palestinians. I don't approve of it. And I have a great-grandmother who was Jewish. You can't say I am anti-Jewish. I am very proud of my Jewish blood. I have no Palestinian blood, but it doesn't alter the fact that the state of Palestine existed, whether you like it or not, and your impertinence is not appreciated. And beyond that, for your information, the Tukans are a great and ancient Palestinian family. Yes, Queen Alia was born in Cairo in Egypt in 1948 after the Palestinians were run out of their country by presumably the people you support. You are a shocking, impertinent disgrace, and don't contact me ever again. Thank you so much. You have one hell of a nerve. I mean, you must be related to Joseph Goebbels, because I have seldom heard such claptrap in my life and such a tissue of lies that you are trying to promulgate. You are a total disgrace to humanity. And that is all for today. And I'm not going to end on a sour note, because I'm not going to allow any propagandists to influence my good mood. We live in a world where lies are treated as if they are the truth, and propaganda is promulgated as if it is fact. And I am very proud to say that I know the difference between a lie and the truth, and I know the difference between justice and injustice. And I know that there are many Israelis who feel as I do about the shocking way in which the Palestinians are treated in their homeland. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and please keep the questions coming in. Remember, this cannot be done without you. God bless and goodbye.